Good morning Burbs, my name is Azalera, and welcome to my very first blind commentary of PSO2 NGS gameplay. Now, first and foremost, I have to say a very special thank you to Violet, which is a really good friend and teammate of mine who had access to PSO2 NGS beta, and took the time to record all these videos and footages for me, which I'll be covering in the next few days to come as well. Just for reference though, they're playing on a laptop, which the specifications will also be in the description below, so if you want to use the laptop spec to say a benchmark or something like that for performance, also this is on the medium graphics by the way. But without further ado, let's take a look at this quest called the Great Wall. So the Great Wall here is a quest that needs you to complete a very special cocoon called the Tower. It is by far the longest and the most difficult cocoon quest of all of them. So let's take a look here together on how my friend clears this quest using the combination of Ranger Force. So at the very starting area here, there's a lot of like all those plants and everything. Those are basically the Resta plants, which allows you to have the thing on the first sub palette here, which is, well, you only have 10 chances to heal, right? Anyways, like I said, the combination is Ranger Force here. So yeah, we're gonna see how the tower goes. First of all, that's a very beautiful usage of parallel slider. It drains your PP, but then also does a good amount of damage. Now these enemies, every class in PSO2 NGS does have a counter by the way, so as you can see, like the Ranger did do a step dodge earlier here, although that one did get hit. But right there, that's a step dodge. I believe the blue numbers might be criticals, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, parallel slider in PSO2 NGS kind of like is a bit of the normal attack, because what you're seeing here is actually the normal attacks, right? So what happens is that the Ranger normal attacks are not like the 3 burst like normal PSO2 anymore. So instead there are a lot more tactical options that you can be doing and things of the sort. Now, there's also weak bullet in this game as well for PSO2 NGS. As you can see, it's hovering right there on the third one in the sub palette there. And then the second one in the sub palette is PP convert from the force tree, and then the fourth one is this very special Ranger skill called, I believe it was the Spreadshot, which is an active skill. It charges over time, but it allows you to do something more or less like a diffusion shell. But I hope we'll see it in action. Well, I'm pretty sure we'll see it in action very, very soon. And yeah, weak bullet is still more or less the same. The indicator for the weak bullet is definitely a lot less clear than PSO2 right now, but maybe it's just for me that I'm not really used to it, right? Anyways, going into the cocoons, there are many objectives and sub-objectives that you can or must do as well. So the main objective here is for you to destroy the Untitled Sword, which is the big enemy you saw in the thumbnail. And then there's of course the sub-objectives, in which number 1, you need to clear within 23 minutes, clear in less than 5 deaths, and then there are also 5 point cubes which you must collect throughout the entire playthrough. So you have to find them or something of the sort. And that is how you clear with full 5 stars in this. Now just to note as well, you actually don't need like 5 stars or anything to clear to get the skill points and things like that. You only need to actually clear the cocoons and the tower for literally just like a quote-unquote first clear to get all your skill point rewards. So yeah, you don't have to worry about all the stars. You don't really have to. Also, I probably should use like the NGS terms for all these skills properly. For example, like the parallel slider that we see right here, right, is actually called Blaze Shot in PSO2 NGS. And then there is the charging thing, which kind of looks like a very big piercing shell, right? That one is actually called Raging Shot. And then the homing mission will be called Homing Dart. Although I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be like the official global version name or not. I'm just kind of like reading off what's provided in the game. So a lot of the enemies here have some very interesting patterns. Like this enemy particularly is a range type enemy, right? So as you get closer to the enemy, it seems that he's trying to, you know, get some distance from you, or either like try to switch into more of melee mode. Yeah, he's mostly trying to get distance, but if you're cornering him, then yeah, I guess it's like one of the very easy strategies to take care of him. And that right there is the Spreadshot. As you saw, that was a shotgun skill active that I was talking about earlier. It has a pretty long charge time though, so you don't really have the opportunity to use it too often. And then speaking of stuff that doesn't really get used often, also on number 0 right there, also on the sub palette on the bottom, is the Photon Blast, which you will see very, very soon. Now, Cocoon Quest doesn't only need you to go through, you know, killing enemies and everything like that. There's also these kind of obstacles that you must go through as well. So this one, you just photon gliding your way through, and then you're using these like currents. And that one right there is a point cube, by the way. So you need to collect 5 of those to get that. Very nice. But it's a little bit of like going through the entire place, right? There's a lot of like obstacles. There's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind of while killing all the enemies and everything. And this is also a quest where you can go 1 to 4 players. So imagine playing 4 players in this would be significantly easier. Also right here, PP conversion from the force tree is now activated, which means his PP recovery is extremely fast, as you saw right there. Although do keep in mind that your PP will not regenerate at all when you're using like charge PAs and things like that. And then right here, the Gororon right here is a very strong enemy which can be frozen, which is probably one of the reasons why my friend here is using the sub force, so he can actually freeze up the enemy to open the weak spot. Let's see if it actually does affect anything. Oh, the weak spot is like right around the back here. Boom! Very big explosion. Now he looks very frozen, which I guess is going to be more or less free DPS, or not. I guess he can just like butt slam on the floor. That's funny. And right there, the front of the belly is now exploded. Probably due to the side effects of like the freeze, like shattering the entire thing. So now another weak spot on the front side is now exposed, which makes it a lot easier for the player here to be able to attack the enemy from the front rather than having to always just go behind to hit the weak spot. I'm not entirely sure whether you can just like break the Gororon's front belly, right, without freezing it first. I would like to think that the mechanic requires you to do that, but considering Phantasy Star, right, I don't think that they'll force you to like, oh, you have to use techniques and stuff like that. So I believe it's probably just damage based in general. One of the most difficult things that I would find to be about soloing a quest like the tower and stuff, right, is the fact that your healing is actually very limited to the amount of the rest of plant things you have, which my friend here only has used 1 so far, which is very good. But I would imagine that going through the entire thing and then having to like manage your rest of plants all the time, it's gonna be very painful for a lot of classes that might not have the survivability as much as like Ranger has in terms of being able to fight from a safe distance and dodge all the enemy bullets, or well, enemy attacks in general, which is very clean kill right there. And now over here, probably will have to jump up and then do a little bit of a parkour section. And over there, that was a wall kick, by the way, to scale up these walls because they're too high. Normally you would not be able to reach with the double jump. So right here, glide into the wall kick, into getting the cube. Very beautifully done. Alright, now the next section. Seems that enemy doesn't really look happy. Ooh. Seems like a turret type enemy that's on 4 legs. I'm not sure if he can attack you when you're on his back though, because it seems like he only has like a very frontal attack pattern. Yeah, it seems like you just basically get free DPS up on here. Imagine if you're playing a class like, you know, fighter or hunter or something like that, you have a really good time. Instead of trying to like float yourself in the air, just like shooting the weak spot. Because Ranger does have this mechanic called the, well, I'll dub it as the critical distance, right? So basically you need to be at a very perfect distance, not too close, not too far from the enemy to deal maximum amount of damage. So sometimes like on platforms like that, it can be a little hard to say, hey, this is my critical distance, right? Because you will need to have positioning and really just like find yourself, hey, I might need to just be in the air a little bit because this is not my critical distance and something like that to really just squeeze out as much damage as you can. And we've seen this enemy, this is probably like the 3rd time by now. Yep. Very clean kill right there. Wall jump into the photon glide, into the air current. Now that cube looks a little peculiar to get. You might have to float up to the correct elevation and then the wall jump up. Very nice. Oh, so there's also currents that propel you forward. Ah, that's very interesting. And then this one up. One more cube up on the very top. And that right there, it's cube number 5. And then there it is. The big enemy that we've been waiting for the entire time. The Untitled sword. So this is the main enemy that we will have to kill. I believe you can also find this enemy as like a 32-man raid boss out in the field as well. So that's something very interesting. And with the weak spot on the back, that is something very annoying. So that you have to use the field to your advantage by perhaps jumping on these blocks and then trying to get to the correct elevation. And also that was a usage of Spreadshot by my friend. So I'll have to see like how the enemy is handled here. I wonder if there's any like breakable parts and things like that, because you know, breakables might actually really come in handy. For example, say if you break like the kneecap or something like that, maybe the enemy will like fall down or something. You know, kind of like Giger from Sharonia, right, in base PSO2. Although there is that the enemy is weak to ice, so maybe freezing him of the sort will create some kind of down as well. Perhaps that's exactly what's going on right now. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention address the elephant in the room, right? A lot of people who have played base PSO2 might be like raising their eyebrows since the very beginning, because I haven't explained yet, like, yo RC, why is your friend playing, you know, Ranger Force, right? And also before anything, this is the Ranger's Photon Blast, which is more or less like, looks like a giant satellite cannon. That was very beautiful. And also did a significant amount of damage as well. But yeah, the reason why you can play Ranger Force is the fact that with the new multi-weapon system, right, what happens is, you know how we have like the attack types and everything, right, which I did, you know, make a small mistake in seeing that, you know, the base stat of the character does not really matter anymore in terms of attack type and things like that, because it's universal attack. But there actually is still striking, range, and tech attack, right? Well, melee and global. But the thing with the PSO2 NGS's multi-weapon system is the weapon that you use for the multi-weapon will use the scaling, the attack type of your main weapon. So for example, playing Ranger Force here, right? The wand that he uses for the second weapon as a multi-weapon will scale off our attack, just like how the rifles is scaling off our attack. So generally I would say that it's not really as big of a deal as what it was in PSO2. And then also later on when we get more affixes and everything, right, it'll be a lot easier for us to affix everything, to have more attack types and all the sort. Because as of right now for the CBT, the affixes and everything are still very limited, so your units are still has to be very like specific towards like, oh, I want this unit to be R attack, I want this unit to be T attack and things like that. But that will not really be a concern once you can actually do the whole like lots of attack type affixing and things of the sort, which, you know, in PSO2 it did take a good while until we get all attack affixes, but it will become possible. And with the PSO2 NGS affixing system as well and everything being a lot more streamlined, I guess it is a little bit of a concern just for now, but I have utmost confidence that in the near future everything will be absolutely fine. So honestly for me, I just can't wait to see all the creative hybrid like class combinations, weapon combinations, especially when they add more new weapons and stuff to the game too. So that'll be super awesome. But yeah, anyways, attention back to the boss here. Seemed like the coloring from before changed to red, which means it is probably in something like an enrage mode or something like that. And also, ooh, looks like the back core actually broke. So that weak spot definitely did not kill the boss. So perhaps it's just a part break. Yeah, his attack patterns and everything looks pretty simple so far, but I can think it might be starting to get a bit annoying for a lot of these, say, melee classes where you always have to like jump up every time and things of the sort to be able to just attack the core, or maybe you'd just be attacking the feet as a melee. Not entirely sure how all that would work, but it seems like so far, just by playing Ranger and stuff, you have just a really good leeway of being able to just kite around the enemy and just have a very good spatial control over like, hey, your boss's attack range can't hit me, so I'm just gonna stay very safe and then counter away. Very nice. I'm not entirely sure also whether all the attacks we're seeing here is like all the attacks possible on the bosses, or is it just something of the sort like, oh, that was a very good Spreadshot, by the way. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure if this is just like the mechanics of the boss is limited to the Cocoon to make it very more simple compared to like the field version where you can fight it with 32 people or not. Because if this is the extent of the boss, I would be a little sad. But you know, all these AoE attacks, I can see why 32 man would be, you know, a very nice thing to combat this thing with. But normally, in this quest at least, you'd be able to fight it with 4 people. So yeah. The clear time would probably be significantly faster. Dodge counter, dodge counter. That one was a failed, but it's okay. Also, for anyone observing, right, I would like to have a discussion with all of you in the comments below as well. What exactly does a weak bullet look like, right? Because like throughout the gameplay so far, I know and I've seen my friend been using weak bullet and all, but like, I don't know, it feels like I haven't really seen the visual of the weak bullet as much. Or maybe I'm just like blind, you know. Also, I just realized that rest of plant thing actually doesn't really have a big cast time at all. Wow. Because he was literally just like rolling in combat and just using the healing item. And there's also no cooldown in it also, so that's very nice. But you will have to, you know, temper your trigger finger a little bit because you don't want to accidentally use like multiple of these since it's a very, very, very limited resource. But yeah, so far, like with all the ice damage and everything, I did not see any like status effects, something like the Goron earlier. There's no like frozen parts or there's no anything by far. And that's also a very good use as a Spreadshot once again. And boom. Tower quest clear. 5 stars, perfect clear. Smack dab right in 16 minutes, no deaths. 5 points, and yep, all subquests clear. Very nicely done. So yeah, that was the Ranger Force gameplay demonstration of the Tower Quest. What do you all think of PSO2 NGS going on this kind of like direction for quests now? Because yes, we do have the open world and everything, but these Cocoon quests are the instances, right? So if you think of this as like, say, the Ship Infiltration Ultimate quest from base PSO2, I can see a lot of similarities between a lot of these quests and those kinds of like very objective based, like, you know, Ultimate Abduskia or a lot of the other, say, emergency / urgent quests in the current game of PSO2 as well. So these are more of like the objective based ones, which they also added some more sub objectives as well if you want the 5-star S rank clear. Anyways, when it comes to overall evaluation, what I feel is I'm not entirely sure if they're trying to like drag out all the fights to be very long or something like that, but from what I've seen, the Spreadshot active skill has such a long cooldown. Same with the Photon Blast, right? Because you only got to use it once and it never even finished charging the second time. And then this entire quest clear was like a 16-minute venture. So it really begs the question to me where like, are they just trying to extend the fights on purpose by just not giving you enough damage? Or is this just the infancy stage of the game where everything would feel a little bit more tanky because, you know, they just have a lot of HP and then we don't have enough damage yet? And the mechanics feel super simple to me. Like, it isn't as dynamic as, you know, an Execore fight or anything like that, but I do understand that this is the early game, right? Where these Cocoon quests are where you get the skill points and all, and they want the new players to be able to just come in here, tag team with their friends, and be like, alright, let's challenge this head on. Which then comes back to a little bit more of the concerns of the game's difficulty and how they are going to use the direction of the game and really be like, hey, we're going to make these contents difficult, we're going to make these contents easy. And then the question is then, where is the fine line between the easy and difficult content? But anyways, that's probably a discussion for a different time. since this video has been going on for like 20 something minutes now. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed the video and gameplay commentary. I'm so sorry if I don't have like the sufficient knowledge of PSO2 NGS to really commentate on everything properly, because I did not get into the CBT1, right? But I'd like to thank once again Violet for providing the footage and everything. So yeah, take care of yourself and don't forget to smile. I'll see you all in the next video coming very soon.